The Spaces Between. A YouTube exclusive, written by me. The hallway was dark, endless, leading to countless others, collapsing in on one another to form a single hallway that split into countless more, the process repeating until the last star in the sky flickered out of existence, slowly succumbing to the black hole it orbited. As the last of entropy became stagnant, every last photon fizzling out of existence, the hallway split off into the finale of its eternal loop. Without time to govern it, the hallway was left to continue when the next Big Bang rolled around. Henry's eyes flicked open, darting around to see he was in his cubicle. He rubbed the back of his neck, a thick film of cooled sweat peeling off, gluing itself to his hand in the air-conditioned room. Checking the time, he released his breath, seeing it had only been a couple minutes. He staggered, inching his way toward the bubbling water dispenser. With each click of a keyboard, he twitched. A light hum of voices fell into the background as he pulled a cup from beside the refreshing machine. The water smacked the waxy cup, assaulting his ears as he tried to keep his pale hand still. Gulping down several cups, he threw it away, stumbling to the bathroom. "Henry, you're not looking too hot." Another employee, John, had stopped him as they crossed paths to and from the bathroom. Yeah, I'll be out in a bit." John gave Henry a once-over as he turned to open the door, only returning to his duties once the door had shut behind his fellow employee. Henry splashed the sink water over his face, rubbing it to peel away the dried sweat. Wiping his face dry, he collapsed into a bathroom stall, locking it. He rubbed his eyes. "That asshole better not try it. I'll fucking kill him." Sparks flashed as he pulled his hands away, having rubbed too hard. Reopening his eyes, the stall was gone. The tile floor remained, alongside corridors and mirrors. He stood, staring at them, each one distorting his face into an amalgamation of flesh, bones, and eyes. His freeze response held strong, not allowing for further developments as he curled up into a ball and waited on the floor. Eternities passed him by like semis on the freeway. The breeze of photons chilled him until he could see the light through his eyelids again, accompanied by the hum of fluorescent lights. When he opened them, he noticed another sound. "Doing all right in there?" A set of knocks. Then, "Henry, can you hear me?" Yeah, I'm fine, John. Just give me a minute, man." He glanced down at his watch. 3 minutes. "If you're feeling sick, I'm fine. I'll be back in a sec. Just give me a minute, guy." Henry huffed. Glancing around, he focused on 5 different objects. When he stood, a short flash overtook him, sending him into a panic. But when he looked around, he found he was still in the bathroom. Shaking the goosebumps off, he hurried to the sink, splashed another set of cold water over his face, and speed walked out of the restroom, drying his face with his sleeves as he left. When he'd gotten back to his seat, he sighed, leaning back in the chair and rubbing his face. A knocking on his cubicle rang out, flinging Henry's eyes open. Spinning in his chair, he met the gaze of his boss leaning against a half wall, mug of coffee in hand. "Heard you were sick. Well, why don't you head home? Don't want you spreading it around. We're behind enough as it is." "Sir, I'm fine, really. I can get my work done just fine." "I don't doubt you can. Get on home. John will take care of your duties for the day, since he brought this to my attention." The unimpressed authority figure walked off, giving a thumbs up to the man in the back of the room. "God damn it, fucking asshole," Henry mumbled to himself, standing to leave. After clocking out, he turned to see John sitting back down. Henry stepped away from the door, fist clenched and teeth gritted. The memories of the hallways made him shudder, and he released his tight fist, walking heavy-footed out the door to his car. That fucking shitbag. Who the hell is he, huh? Taking my work at the slightest sign of weakness. Henry slammed his fist on the steering wheel. Oh yeah, you're so fucking cool, because you can tell the boss someone is sick just to get a leg up. Fuck off. Releasing his foot, he slammed it back on the brake, rocking the car in place. And who the fuck put this traffic here? God damn it! He mashed the horn until the car behind him honked. Rolling down the window, he flipped the person behind him off. That slimy fuck! Fuck is his deal? He laid into the horn again. Tired of the egotistical man behind him, the bulky construction worker in front of him jumped out of his vehicle, stomping over. Henry shifted to park, but before he could roll his window up, the man had flung his door open, pulling him out. Wait, man, I'm... Fist met face, and Henry saw nothing until he opened his eyes again. A single tile-plated corridor. Walls nothing but imperceptibly tall shelves of blurry goods. Light emanated from nowhere, simply being with no source, and the only thing out of place was a single figure standing in front of him, yet miles away. He was distorted, like asphalt in the desert. What the... Static legs under him, he walked toward the figure. Each step stabbed his legs with serrated needles, stung his throbbing eye, amplified the pounding in his chest. Approaching the figure, he stared at it. The wavy static holding strong, distorting any specific features the entity may have had. He stepped carefully. Hey, you there. The thing focused on the intruder. As Henry focused on the features of its head, he made out the vague impressions of eyes, a mouth, and ears. Forcing more effort through, the eyes revealed themselves. Deep caverns of flesh, tendons, and ligaments, all in disarray, but the centers held nothing except a deep yearning for loneliness. The creature leaned in, the caverns dilating, pushing the flesh and tendons to the side, widening the abyss, eating Henry whole. Tapping him in the center of the forehead, he shot up, pupils dilated, taking in the surroundings of his bedroom. What the hell? He checked the time. 8 minutes had passed. Sprinting down the steps, he ran to his garage. There's no way. His car sat. Pristine condition. Not a speck of dust out of place. Pulling out his phone, he called into work. Hey, sorry I'm late. What? Do you need tomorrow off too? Huh? When did I leave? I'll tell John to be sure he's ready for the workload. No, I'll be fine to come back in tomorrow. Just tell me when I left. 20 minutes ago? Look, just don't bother coming in tomorrow. If you're that desperate, you can do some work from home. The phone went dead. Henry wound back his hand to throw the phone, but let it rest by his side. Maybe some old sushi for the dickhead'll do. A migraine stabbed him through the side of his head, and he grabbed his left eye. If he gets the position, maybe some actual fucking poison. He toppled to his knees, a flash overtaking him. Then the pain vanished. Opening his eyes, he found himself in an airport. Red emergency lights overhead. He stood slow, looking around him. He tried to speak, but his throat tightened, forming no sound. Screaming, he found no breath would leave him until he relaxed his throat. Sneaking to a nearby desk, he powered up a laptop sitting in the center. When it requested a password, he looked down to see he couldn't see any of the letters. Despite their English nature, they overlapped with hundreds, thousands of other characters. He slammed the computer shut, a light tapping sounding from an endless corridor of painted windows and locked doors. Sweaty, he rubbed his hands on his pants, focusing. It was coming from the right hallway. Slowly, he walked down it, hiding behind occasional pillars and desks when his position allowed it. When the tapping stopped, he again found the nearest laptop, threw it open, only to be met with the same indistinguishable keys. As he stared at them, trying to decipher them, the overhead lights dimmed into a shadow of themselves until vanishing. He slammed the laptop shut in frustration, only to be met with the distorted entity, bottomless sockets staring down at him. They sucked the light from around the two, leaving Henry to fall into the caverns, losing his body behind him as he fell further. Down, 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 faster, a black hole at the bottom spaghettifying the remnants of his soul until his only sense of self was at the top end of his manifestation. Faster and faster until he shot upright, sitting on his floor. Trying to stand several times, he crawled to a seat in his kitchen and pulled himself up. He attempted to lift his leg but failed. Running his hands over them shot pins into his blood vessels, the sensation coming back to him as he continued rubbing. His legs were numb, stiff, like he'd just taken a dip in a frozen lake. Once he'd warmed up enough to stand again, he noticed a faint tapping. He jerked his head around, then up, then down. Water droplets littered the floor. Looking up, he started for the garage when something hit his hand. Wiping it off, he noticed his face was damp. Wiping the water from it, he realized he was crying. Staring at his hands, they shook. Gripping them into fists, he tried to contain himself, finding not even his legs would hold still. He stumbled to the floor, spasming in the fetal position, the eyes of the entity piercing and hooking his soul. The condemnation from within the bottomless pit sent screams through his nervous system, echoing to the rest of his body in an eternal agony. His pupils dilated as his mind filled with the distorted entity that now lay before him. Stuck in a perpetual shiver, Henry couldn't do anything but stare at the approaching creature. The hallway it came from extending, rising, splitting into quintillions of alternate paths. As it met Henry, the being held out its hand as if to lift him. Muscles stuttering, Henry reached, and as the eternal creature made contact, it ripped the office worker from his body. Millions, trillions, every aspect of his being in the future and past, every last zeptosecond of his existence stretched until snapping back into place like a bungee cord. His true reality laid before him, starting with John, and continuing on with anyone else who inconvenienced him in his sprint to death. Imprisoned for 6 murders he was rightfully accused of. The blood of each victim never left his hands, no matter how much soap he used. The blood only he could see. The bleach he'd tried to use before his court date doing nothing but amplifying his blisters. He would wrap his hands before going in, the blood staining only the outside of his bandages, to the oblivion of those around him. Being placed in his cell, he would use a snuck-in razor blade to wash his hands for good. The blood from his throat would have to do. Henry stared into the entity's Vanta black sockets and went limp. His lip quivered for a moment, and then he smiled. "I see." He nodded, a tear escaping his eye as he felt a familiar frozen numbness starting in his feet, creeping its way up. The tear lay frozen on the floor for the briefest moment, before it too was consumed by the eyeless being.